Hello, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. I think it's we're on. So we are here at the funny time of living room concerts and conferences, master classes, everything living room or kitchen or closet podcasts, and it's funny, but at the same time, it's quite amazing that we're still doing it, no matter what the circumstances. And my name is Zisl Slepovitch, and I'll be talking and playing and singing and do different stuff here today. You probably can't see all the arsenal of instruments I'm going to be using here tonight. You eventually will. And I'll talk and sing and make music, make noises here in my living room, and meine Schreine, my poor neighbors. I hope they'll enjoy that as well. Anyway, so Klezmer Clarinet and Beyond, that was the title we sort of came up. How to call that presentation. But seeing yourself and putting yourself in the kind of this strange new situation, being sort of isolated and not traveling, even in here in New York City, and even on the subway or anywhere, not even stepping out of the house. I hope you to stay in the safety of your home. It kind of puts things in perspective. It makes you think, makes you reflect, so I decided to talk and play, dedicate a good chunk of today's conversation, because it's a National Yiddish Theater Folksbiene video, how do you call it, live stream video blog, to dedicate it to actually my pretty long relationship, partnership, familyship with the company, which began literally next week after I set my foot on American shore in summer of 2008. And I was teaching next to the week, literally, I was teaching Yiddish at the Working Circle, the Arbitering Trip to Yiddishland program, which was just beginning at the time, as we know it today, led by the wonderful Kolya Borodulin, my dear friend and mentor, and Motel Didner, who's Associate Artistic Director of the Folksbiene, brought the Folksbiene troupe, the cast, 6, 7, 8-piece cast of young actors in their 20s and 30s to perform there. And I was warming up at the piano, and he came up to me, "Oh, I don't know you, but we might need a pianist. Here's my business card." And before I knew, I was auditioning for him and Zalman Lotek and Moshe Asur for the play that we did that very fall of 2008, Gimple Tam, Gimple the Simpleton, Gimple the Fool, in Yiddish at the JCC. So it's been almost 12 years. It's quite amazing. So I think I have something to share with you and to play, to tell. I will not tell you everything, but there are things that I'm going to tell, and there are things I'm going to play and sing. And of course, there are other things as well. So I will start probably with this music from Gimple Tam, in which I found myself in a position of conductor. Zalman Lotek was the music director, but I was actually sitting next. There was no pit. The four of us, me and Taylor Bergen-Chrisman and Luisa Strauss-Boyman, currently Beeler, and Joshua Kemp on the accordion, we were sitting next to the stage. So I was immediately introduced. I came with zero knowledge of what American theater is, what Broadway is, and leave alone Yiddish theater with all the it's Pichowkes. So I was learning on the job and then learning all the funny stories and funny realities of Yiddish theater, including its funny audience. So it could be funny at times, like asking me in the middle of a passage how to go to the bathroom. Anyway, so Gimpel Tamo was conducting with a clarinet, and I was doubling on shofar, which I brought from Minsk via Jerusalem, or Jerusalem via Minsk, my hometown in Belarus, where I come from, and wind chimes, with which I opened the show. And we all our band went on stage for the wedding scene. So there are stories and stories to tell, but I'll just start. I have to start the show, and it's pretty terrifying. I'm playing mostly woodwinds and keyboards, and starting on the reed, in the silence of the theater, it's a little bit chilling. Anyway, so it started. There's a music written by the Romanian composer Radu Kaptari, and it opens with a number called "The Levon is Shined," the moon is shining. So that was the opening number. Of course, this is a shorter version and almost a 2-hour show. So that was my introduction. The next 2 years, we relocated with our shows to Baruch Performing Arts Center, to Baruch College, and we played there for a few years, and one of which, actually, I'm fast forward, after the very first preview of The Golden Land, if any of you saw that, it was a play, a review created by Zalman Montag and Moshe Rosenfeld in the 80s, but that was revived in 2012. So after the first preview, we were told to stay at home. There was a Sandy hurricane. So just to put things in perspective and to look back, there are so many things that we survived here in New York and in Yiddish theater, and being musicians and being actors. So I'm kind of staying optimistic, careful optimistic about now. So anyway, I should probably speak about my background, because it's been funny. I know I come from Minsk, and I went to special music school, to conservatory, Academy of Music, and then grad school there, studying Jewish music as a musicologist, and my doctoral dissertation was in Jewish music in Eastern Europe as well. And it was a kind of interesting combination of classical and klezmer, which was to be klezmer over there was sort of a black sheep. And having come over here, it was the other way around. It was this whole scene here is oversaturated with everything klezmer and Yiddish, at least to me, from my perspective, and I couldn't feel happier doing that. So the next 2 years, we were doing a show by Gershon Zon, who was a Ukrainian Jewish playwright in the 1930s, called Hershel Ostropolier, The Adventures of Hershel Ostropolier, starring Mike Burstyn and directed by Eleanor Risa. And again, there were 4 of us in this so-called, it was a very similar setup to that at JCC. And so there were funny, folk tunes set up in a funny way and very fitting way to the script. Anyway, so there was this Kalman, the Procentnik, played by the wonderful Izzy Firestone, who works at the Folksbiene still the group sales, and who's a talented actor and a wonderful human, which I had a great pleasure to be hanging out with and talking to. He was this vile person who was demanding this couple to pay an obscene amount of money for their mother's ring to get married. Anyway, so there was the song, which is an adaptation of the Shabbos of der Nacht, the Quell zum Reden vorn, the song about the trains and the locomotives and new reality. And it's sort of Meshuggah in the Ukrainian dialect. And this Kalman is Meshuggah. Everybody was trying to convince Kalman that he's crazy. Is there such thing as klezmer saxophone? Well, probably is. Tenor sax and alto sax both appeared on American klezmer music recordings more than one time, and so there was that adaptation. So maybe I don't know. Okay, anyway. So and in the finale of Herschel Ostropolier, when everybody reconciled and the couple, the newlyweds, they got their ring and they got married, and it was the song "One is the Kibberbeten," let us make up, let's make peace, let's live in peace. And the lyrics were "One is the Kibberbeten, a Reus von Hals de Steiner, one is the Kibberbeten, Roistenhaus de Steiner, so that the stones go out from our heart." And the tune, that's a traditional, it's a folk song, it's Yiddish folk song. That's a little music of Betten. So there was that part of the theater. To me, it was all a novelty. I really didn't have any theater background when I came here. And working with Folksbiene, it really gave me that more than one perspective, really. And perspective of Yiddish theater, the history of Yiddish theater, and American theater in general, because. What we know today as mainstream American theater, Broadway really was born in more than one way, was born on 2nd Avenue, the Yiddish Broadway, back in the days. The next year, it was, I think, around 2011. I was also working. I'm just predominantly I'm playing all these woodwinds here, but I'm also, a keyboard player, a pianist, and I was working as a rehearsal pianist for many productions of Folksbiene, and this one was an interesting collaboration. This next musical that I did was conceived by a wonderful musicologist, composer, mentor, also in many ways, Henk Kusnetsky, who's chair of contemporary improvisation at New England Conservatory. And we didn't work a lot with him every time that we did work with Henkus. And I hope, Henkus, you're watching maybe, or somebody who can convey that to Henkus. It really had a great, great pleasure, even including that one time when I was artist in residence at BIMA program at Brandeis University. And I invited Henkus to be my stage partner to perform a multimedia program that I had just created based on my research, my field research called Traveling the Yiddish Lands. And it was a lot of fun, switching from piano to accordion. Henkus would go into accordion and, clarinet. And anyway, so this musical was created by Henkus in 1994, as far as I know. It's called Shlemiel the First. It was about the sages of Chelm. And you might ask, by the way, how come I have all this sheet music? I was helping to prepare all those scores, and for Shlemiel the First, I was a production copyist, and besides being a rehearsal pianist, and then clarinetist in the 2011, I think, revival. Margot Leverett was playing the clarinet, and then she moved out of New York City next year, and I was asked to play clarinet when we did a short run and NYU Scarborough Center. So it was a lot of fun, and we were costumed and got on stage and schlepping with on the schmattes, and it was really a lot of fun. So anyway, so this, although most of that musical is an adaptation also of Yiddish folk songs, to the wonderful book written by Robert Burstein. This opening Wake Up Bulgar is Henkus Kusnetsky's original piece, and this is what it opened with. So this is it, and then again the wake up, the opening of the play itself was that lonely, mystical clarinet solo. etc. So that was the opening, and those flutter-tongued weird notes was the alarm clock, and Shlemiel and his wife were getting up in the morning. The whole story started there. So that was it. It was, as I said, a lot of fun. I met a lot of friends. I should just keep mentioning that because I really became a very rich person through all this production. Not rich in money. You don't become rich through Yiddish theater. Oh my God, not. But you do become rich in friendships. You do become rich in partnerships that you form, and all the collaborations. Actually, going back to Gimpel Tam, I started my klezmer band here in New York, Litvakos, right at that pit, the pit of Gimpel Tam. We played as a quartet, and with Taylor and Josh and Luisa, and then Luisa left. She found her life partner in Berlin. So then Craig Udelman joined us, and now Zoe Aqua is playing with us, and then Sam Weisenberg, who I met at Class Canada, joined us too. So we became a quintet. But anyway, I started my band at a Folksbiene show, and I know that was not the only precedent of Yiddish theater or even Folksbiene productions going way back, which actually also poses an interesting question. Where the theater, theater oftentimes is referred to as frozen music, as dead music, and as opposed to improvised or semi-improvised music of other styles. I wouldn't call klezmer exactly improvised music, but there's a great deal of improvisation in what we call klezmer music. Nevertheless, having spent this much time with Yiddish theater and in Yiddish theater and being really part of it, in many incarnations, so to speak, in many facilities, I wholeheartedly disagree with that statement. Although I do understand, I do respect the sentiment. There's clearly a difference, because when you make a show and you have, typical American theater run, meaning 6, 7, 8 shows a week, you have to create that kind of consistency. You have to recreate the same thing over and over and over again. But on the other hand, there's this also happening of live art on stage or in the pit, this artistry, this musicianship. And again, I'll go back to my thought that I met so many wonderful artists and humans, and doing Shlemiel the First, I met Daniel Linden, the trombone player, with whom we did I don't know how many shows after that. A lot of shows, really, but also other musicians too. And I think that it was then that I met Michael Larson of blessed memory, who's a wonderful music director, pedagogue, pianist, and I also learned a great deal of musical theater from him, doing shows. We did Shlemiel the First. He was Zalman's sub pianist conductor, and then we did another show, Lies My Father Told Me, based on the 1970s movie, with the music composed by Canadian composer Ilan Kunin at Baruch Performing Arts Center. So Michael Larson was the pianist, conductor, music director there. It's really something really precious. So I do want to remember, I can't name everybody, but I do remember everybody, and I want to acknowledge as many people as possible. So at the same time, I was asked to do a show which I did not physically play. It was a production, a collaboration, another collaboration. This, by the way, Shlemiel, was a collaboration of the Folksbiene and Theater for a New Audience, classical Shakespeare theater here in New York, and also Montclair State University and NYU. And I think that same year I was asked to be co-musical editor, production copyist for a Harvard Yiddish Players production of Goldfaden's iconic operetta Shulamis. So it was performed at Harvard University, conducted by my still Facebook friend we never met in person, Lydia Yankovskaya, is a wonderful conductor, currently residing in Chicago, doing a lot of opera, also Russian opera. So this tune that I'm going to play is from Shulamis, and this tune, many people don't know it's from Shulamis, but they would recognize. Many people don't know is by Avram Goldfaden, who was the father of Yiddish theater, of secular contemporary Yiddish theater. But they probably know the tune. Raisins and Almonds, Rozenkes mit Mandeln, a lullaby. That was that very interesting project, which unfortunately I didn't see in person, but I was really happy to explore. I didn't know much, it was another step in my own education in this, and I really discovered the world of Goldfaden. It's not an exaggeration to say the world of Avram Goldfaden. He's really a talented creator, playwright, composer, really everything. And he got a tremendous instinct of how to do amazing, entertaining theater that would be interesting worldwide. He really toured worldwide. So this is not chronological, but fast forward. I will go back in time a little bit, just telling you about this journey. But fast forward, a few years later, Folksbiene started restoration projects, basically aiming at researching, discovering, curating, restoring, and presenting the gems of Yiddish theater. Well, there were a lot of plays, operettas, musical comedies written for Yiddish theater. Joseph Romshinsky alone wrote 90 operettas. It's insane, and it was so popular. It was the ultimate mean of entertainment for immigrant Jews, and I imagine not only Jews. We know then that Cagney spoke Yiddish. Definitely a lot of theater and then film community did know, at least understood, and some could speak Yiddish. And by osmosis, people here in New York we know that words, a lot of Yiddish words entered English, and some became standard American English words such as chutzpah, and they are officially part of literary American English and are used in American literature. Anyway, so part of that, or a central part, should I say, of that project was a restoring of Goldfaden's other iconic operetta, The Sorceress, the Kishachmacherin, which he wrote in his home country, Romania. The original title was The Kishachmacherin von Botoshan. And so that was a whole journey for us, for our team, for Montel Didner, Zalman Lotek, and some of our actors, Joe Mace, who's going live on Folksbiene Live this Friday night, and Bruce Rebold, Raquel Nobel, and a whole troupe. So we went to Romania, a whole troupe of Romanian State Jewish Theater. And we went there to do the impossible, to stage this operetta in this with our joint forces in the course of 10 days. It's mission impossible. The technical rehearsal happened within 3.5 hours. You know, it's really something out of this world. Like, is it really happening? Anyway, so Montel and Zalman asked me to go over the existing sources that they sourced down at YIVO Institute here in New York. So I worked with about I believe 5 or 6 different sources, both manuscripts from Vilna and Odessa production and printed sheet music, you know, adaptations, arrangements for amateur home music making, basically whatever we could get our hands on. And at the end, with our joint effort, this show was born. We workshopped it here in New York, did a stage production, then took it to Romania, and then did a week-long production. And then this last December, we finally did 4 weeks of The Sorceress at the National Yiddish Theater at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. Anyway, so there's a lot of fun doing it, and Goldfaden had this amazing, as I said, feel for taste, should I say, musical taste, and it's a delectable pastiche. That's what it is, and it opens with a birthday song, the Yiddish birthday song, Zu deinem Geburtstag, where the guests and the family are wishing Mirele, the lead character, a happy birthday. Then everything, a lot of things happen, and Mirele is abducted by a vile Eliakim and Baba Yachne, and she's sold slavery to Istanbul. And as she is being abducted and she's in Baba Yachne's house, her apprentices are mocking at her as she's singing her romance. And it's a really beautiful, very different aesthetic. So when orchestrating that piece, I was thinking about Mozart's arias, and naturally I thought about using an obbligato instrument. In this case, it's a bass horn, which Mozart loved. It was his favorite clarinet, his favorite instrument, which he used also in La Clemenza di Tito, in the Magic Flute, and Requiem, and Grand Partita, and many other works. So it can be played on the B-flat clarinet or bass horn, which is an F clarinet here. So anyway, so this was that, and then there was all of a sudden there was a Turkish March, because Mirele ended up in Turkey, in Istanbul, which also tells a story of slavery and oftentimes sexual slavery, to where the abducted Eastern European women, and oftentimes girls actually, were sold. And here's the there was the Terken, the Turks. So it was kind of, to me, also exciting to discover, oh, so Goldfaden also wrote Alla Turca. Now, Alla Turca being a reference to this kind of Turkish style in European music. And I'm sure many of you know Mozart's finale of Mozart A Major Sonata. But Mozart was not the pioneer there. It was probably Jean-Baptiste Lully in his Bourgeois Gentilhomme, when he used a whole scene, the Turkish scene, where, by the way, the Sultan and the Sultan's ambassador were mocked at the, so it was that kind of cultural revenge, because Ottoman Empire did not quite behave very well in the 17th and 18th century Europe. Anyway, so Goldfaden writes the Terken, and for that purpose I used an E-flat clarinet, which is kind of higher and more playful. So on. Sounds really playful. It's military, actually, very militant. So that was that. Okay, so, and I'm going now back a little bit back in time, and I'm going to talk a little about probably one of my very favorite plays that we did. And that was the Dov Zeltzer's The Megillah of Yitzhak Manger. It was actually the only production in Yiddish that ran on Broadway. I think it was 1968. It ran in Israel, it ran and in the United States on Broadway in Yiddish and in English. So I had to re-orchestrate that piece, and Mottel Didner directed it, and I used it was a political satire that Yitzhak Manger wrote in 1937 in Warsaw, saying everything was happening around him. When Hitler had already risen to power, and it was 1 year before the Kristallnacht. It was clear what was going to happen. Probably not to the extent that it really happened, but and he wrote this kind of Purim spiel, which I really hope that we'll bring back someday with the Folksbiene, and it's a beautiful set with this huge horse trained by Jenny Romaine. It's really amazing. So, and I used several instruments, and there was no, actually, in the score that we got our hands on, there was no clarinet. It was the violin, accordion, and bass. And I used was going between the B-flat clarinet and C clarinet, which is a little higher in pitch, and it is more playful, actually. And a lot of klezmer clarinetists, including Dave Terrace, were playing the C clarinet, and it was also used all over 19th century classical music, and Beethoven, Rossini, you name it. A lot of composers wrote for C clarinet. Kind of fell out of fashion in the 20th century when the clarinet became way more advanced, technologically advanced. But anyway, it's a separate instrument. It's very distinctive voice. So when we opened the very overture, the theater theme, it opens with the solo, well, not solo, but accompanied motif played by C clarinet. And you know, so it goes, and there are other themes played by C clarinets. Actually, not only playful themes, but also very lyrical themes. It's a very lyrical instrument too. So in the songs of Fastrigoso is one character that we don't find in the traditional Megillah, the traditional story of Purim. He was a Schneiderjung. He was a tailor's apprentice, and he's in love with Esther. So that creates that love track in the show. Dov Zeltzer, who we actually were honored to see, who came to one of our shows at Baruch Performing Arts Center, he now, you know, kind of looking back, I kind of realized that he adopted a lot of the Goldfaden's techniques, and namely combining different styles and going between the styles. So that if you ask me klezmer, is there klezmer, any klezmer-ish style? Of course. So there's a lot, but also he uses quotes from Mozart, from Menuet from Don Giovanni, in the kind of same ironic reference that was used in Don Giovanni as well. And he uses modern, the 1960s, 1970s musical theater vocabulary, definitely, like this, the song of Fastrigoso, and the song of the Golden Peacock. You know, so the Golden Epaved, yeah, Manger's genius adaptation of the Golden Epaved, or Fleet's Fegelach, and Fastrigoso sings "Fly Little Birds" to the Malka Esther fleet, to the Queen Esther. Also begins with a clarinet solo. You know, it's a really beautiful, beautiful theme, very much in the style of the 60s and 70s musicals and pop music, which is not a bad thing at all. You know, and then goes back to the Megillah theme, to the theater theme. And theater overture. And then, you know, I also use, when playing, orchestrating the Megillah with Manger, I used bass clarinet. You know, it's kind of funny because bass clarinet is really looked at in a very new way, a completely different way in the 20th century, when composers actually started writing for bass clarinet, using a lot of extended techniques because of the little fundamentals that it has. you know, and allows for a lot of things actually. But traditionally, and especially in applied music and film music and theater music, a lot of times bass clarinet was looked at as, you know, as kind of a vile character instrument, you know, just depicting some vile character, which in this case is also true. You know, I'll stand up for a little bit. So I'm sitting all the time. This here is Achashverosh, who's not just necessarily vile, but he's, you know, not very smart. He's silly. He's a drunkard, and so he's kind of described bass clarinet. So, you know, it's a little bit comical, a little bit kind of vile. It's very, you know, it's very idiomatic. That's what I'm trying to say, I think. It doesn't really use all the, you know, possibilities of bass clarinet, you know, which goes from all the way from. It has a huge range, and you know, let me read this a little dry here. Anyway, so, but you know, the King Ahasuerus was depicted by the bass clarinet. So while that was happening, while the Megillah was happening, very happy occurrence happened in my life. My daughter was born. I know, and I remember the cast baking this beautiful cake, and you know, it was really beautiful time then. And when my Dina was born, I started speaking to her in Yiddish, and it was Russian and later English added. So she kind of started growing up in the same, in a different but also the same kind of multilingual milieu that I was growing up, just probably a different set of languages. And from her very first days, I was singing Yiddish songs to her, lullabies and everything. And Dina, are you here? And so we learned this song is not from any of the shows that we did, but Dina is now coming over here. Just careful. Okay. So this is Dina. I'm just going to lower this tripod for a little while now, so to, you know, make it work for Dina's height. And recently, she started attending a group led by a wonderful klezmer and jazz musician, Aaron Alexander, called Klez Kids NYC, where a bunch of kids and their parents, they come together and they learn Yiddish songs, they learn klezmer style, simple klezmer arrangements. And so, yeah, say Shalom Aleichem, Solomon.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom, Dinole. You know, and wir wollen singen Lied, we'll sing a song that Dina learned in Aaron's group, which is also feels very appropriate for this times when we all kind of expecting Messiah to come. And recently Dina performed this song. You know, we recorded it on the video. I posted it on the Facebook, and we were really overwhelmed with the positive reaction of so many people, you know, who found it kind of resonating with what they felt. So, long story short, we'll sing Shnira Leperle, a string of pearls. The Messiah, son of David, is sitting high up on the chair, and he holds a goblet, a silver goblet in his right hand. It's fine. And making a blessing for all the Jewish people. And then when the Messiah comes, all the Jewish people will gather in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel.
Danzai con Dior, veder come sorrai. Danzai con det Zeiten, veder come sorrai. Dann die Erde zu slå,
Dank Dinalem. Jascha Koech. Ihr seid vorsichtig. Vorsichtig zwischen den Instrumenten. Right, I'm saying, the time, the Zeit fleet, the Zeit geht. What's happening there? Okay, I don't know what's happening. Hello? Oh God. All right, just a second. I think we're back here. Hello? Yes, okay. So I'm going to rise this tripod again here a little bit. So anyway, there's more stories that I was going to tell that I think we have time to Daphne sein so nudne. I know let me just look at what I prepared. And well, so so I should know, fast forward. I mean, I should just say that in 2018 we started playing Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish, directed by Joel Gray, and that was the very long time idea, and dream of Zalman Lotic, and to put it, the Tevye Stories, the iconic American musical, Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish, and the translation that Shraga Friedman made in Israel more than 50 years before that, which was not a success back then. And so we sort of taking risk, and was a 7-week engagement, which turned out into a 1.5-year long successful run. You probably, most of you who are watching this live stream, you know the story, and transferred to commercial scene, commercial stage 42 theater in early 2019, and ran there for 11 months. It was amazing. So, I think it'd be just kind of fitting. So there are questions. There are things to think about and to answer. Is Fiddler on the Roof, is it klezmer? It's not. It incorporates elements of klezmer music, but largely, by large and far, it's it's a 1960s American musical theater style. A little bit jewed up, klezmerized. However you like to put it. And there were a lot of, as I was looking in my book, there are kind of funny notes for the clarinetist, which was assumed that would not be knowledgeable or able to play any klezmer piece, or any playing klezmer style. For example, when it came to a klezmer portion in Wedding Dance with nasal sound, like really nasal sound, it's not really klezmer. It's just nasal sound. It's not like Zurna. I kind of understand the intention behind such notes, but anyway, it's kind of amazing what, I could probably do another whole other live stream just telling the stories of Fiddler or Yidler, how we used to call it. Anyway, I'll better play. And what I'm gonna play is a wedding dance, a part of wedding dance number one. Which I was going on stage in costume 8 times a week, and so the reason why I tried to really understand the style of it, a lot of things that kind of came naturally to me, being in both worlds, both a classical and klezmer player. I had to explain to my substitute players, who were all amazing players, but not all of them were as deeply entrenched in klezmer tradition, klezmer repertoire, and I had to make it work and for that to make sense for them. Anyway. Etc. So we went. Yeah. So it's been a long trip, a long journey, and I did not even mention a few other amazing productions that have been part of The Golden Bride, which we did for 2 seasons. Rumshinsky's most successful operetta, which was restored by Michael Ochs, a former Harvard University music librarian, and it was also quite a trip, I must tell you. And and The Golden Land, which was then came back as a slightly condensed, reworked version as America, The Golden Land, entirely in Yiddish. Anyway, so I really hope that this journey will continue. I have 2 more things today, since I hope you're still there. One is a tribute, is also the song written by Rumshinsky for his, it's safe to say, obsolete 1922 musical comedy Berle Tramp, Berle the Vagabond Street Boy, based on Israel Rosenberg's play of the same name. And the original lyrics were written by Sam Lowenworth. Honestly, I don't know anything about him. Not bragging, but really, I don't. But for the purpose of tonight's performance, I learned this song originally from Zalman Lotek, who made it part of his show and part of American Golden Land, and it was called Watch Your Step. Which is a kind of Yinglish, this English Yiddish pidgin on display, which was very much a thing and still is in a way. I mean, although that generation is definitely dying out, but and there are many other new pidgins, of course, Runglish, Spanglish, that. Anyway, so I took some time and liberty to rework it and to kind of match it to today's to current reality and make it fun and I hope meaningful. America av land, någon som stay at home med förmaktad businessmen, förmaktad shop. Einer hat a date und kommt Game och spät och några Zoom, FaceTime, Facebook oder Skype med gay. Men vad som är nicht zu talker im Game, dann kann ich mehr versetzen, was sein Quatsch und Shade. Von der Heime guckt der Play und von der Heime spielt der Play. Drugstore läuft und wenn der Boy in Play. Wash your hands, schreit mir auf ganz plain. Wash your hands, überall kennt ihr nur Sinn. Der Blitzkurs und online, so kann dein vor und fein. Zum Beispiel, ihr sollt nur stark auf, wash your hands. Wash your hands, schreit mir auf ganz plain. Wash your hands, überall kennt ihr nur Sinn. Der Blitzkurs und online, so kann dein vor und fein. Like fresh gesund und stark bleibst, wash your hands. We're shipping applications in the labor and white off. An unemployment rate bald schon jeder Host. W2 ist der Feierachmones 1899. Der strictly benefits can fail outside. Wash your hands, schreib mir aus ganz plain. Wash your hands, überall kennt ihr die Set. Der Blitzkurs und online, so mit Title vor und fein. Und so bleibt ihr frisch gesund und stark aus. Wash your hands, und so bleibt ihr frisch gesund und stark aus. Hey yo, wash your hands. Wash your hands. So that was the penultimate thing I had to say, and the last one is not as loud and brassy and stagey as this one, but it's an homage and a homage. Homage? How do you say it in English? Homage. It's a dedication, really, to a great musician who is now recovering from COVID-19 disease. Andy Stadman and his wife Barbara Stadman, who composed a lot of amazing melodies, who's a luminary of bluegrass and klezmer worlds, and really over-the-top musician. And I don't need to introduce him, but this is a dedication I wanted to play, composed by him, his Flatbush Waltz. I wish Andy and Barbara a speedy and full recovery, and I hope we'll see each other and also see you, everyone who's still online and who came to see this live stream, and everybody who supports the National Yiddish Theater and Yiddish Theater and the arts. In general, I hope that we'll meet in a more conventional way, on stage, in theater, in concerts. Although I must say, this online thing is a great, it is a great medium, but just I think we all want it not to be the only medium that we use. Anyway, I wish you to stay healthy, to wish a speedy recovery if you're recovering. Stay safe, and I'll see you later, and tune in for future upcoming Folksbiene live streams, and I will probably do a few of my own. By the way, using this time now, I just want to say that I'm a musician in residence at the Fortunoff Video Archive at Yale University. I'm combing through and curating and restoring the songs and poetry recited and sung by the Holocaust survivors. There are a lot of them, and this is a project that we carry out together with my ensemble and Sasha Lurie, a wonderful singer based in Berlin, Germany. So there will be a series of webcasts, live streams from YIVO and from probably Yale University or Slivka Center there. I don't know yet, but stay tuned. I will send emails, I'll post online. So stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that and singing those songs, presenting those songs. There's a lot of Yiddish culture here, and Halavai weiter. All right, stay well, everyone. Seid mir gesund und stark.